Hello and welcome to another macro video. Today we're going to be looking at a sorting problem that someone gave me, but it's a sorting problem with a difference, and I'm going to look at the way I dealt with it, and hopefully we can learn things as we go along. So we're trying to solve a sorting problem, and here is the problem: that the references that we're trying to sort, if I switch the visible formatting on, you can see there that Adams has one reference, and then Adams has a second reference, and you've got, I don't know what you call these things, but I've just called them dittos. So we've got a ditto, and obviously that's got to be, those two lines, they're going to be held together in the sorting. So if I get rid of those, what I'm going to do is go through the process I went through, which is, my first thought was, okay, well I can do this with Fredit. Fredit's very powerful. You can run programs, macro programs from Fredit, so I could run a sort but do some find and replace first and afterwards. And that was the idea. It sort of worked, but gradually as I went through I found that I'd got increasing problems looking at what the example file that the lady provided me with. I could see there was more things that needed sorting. Got a bit further, but eventually I realised I was going to have to use a macro solution, so I'm going to explain that, or how to, what I did, how to use it, and then for those who are interested, towards the end of the video I'll go on to give the details of the macro, so that if you're interested in programming you can have a look and see what I've done and learn from that. Right, so my first thought was with these dittos, as I've called them, that what we could do, let's just look back at it. What we're trying to do is to say, well, those are two lines, and what I want to do is to pull that back onto that line and make that all one. That's now one paragraph, and so I can sort it as one paragraph, and it will sort alphabetically, and then I can put the carriage return back in there, and that will restore those references which are meant to be held together. It will restore them. Okay, so here's the idea, my first idea. So we can just get rid of me for a start, distracting. The caret plus is the sign for M dash, because what we've got here is 3 M dashes, 1, 2, 3. So we want to find a return followed by 3 M dashes and replace it with some text that's going to be unique, so that we can get it back later. So we can do a sorting, and this is something that some of you may not have picked up, is that within Fredit this may look like a find and replace in Fredit, but it's not. It's an instruction, if you like, to do a macro, a particular macro. That's the name of the macro, and obviously if you're going to use this you've got to have the sortit macro loaded on your computer. So once the paragraphs are sorted, then we can replace the ZC with what it was originally, the carriage return and the 3 M dashes. Okay, but the problem then was that I found I'd got some other references which had a different format. In this case it was a hyphen and a tab, and also that's an automatic list. So I also had to use an auto list off command, which stops the automatic listing and turns that into a real list. Which I can do, which I hadn't thought of doing. I'm going to do it now and hope I get it right. Auto list off, run. Okay, so what I've got there now is an actual hyphen and a tab. Good. Right, so I extended my Fredit script to say, yes, do the M dashes, but also do a return and a hyphen and a tab, and change those to something else but also unique, and then I do the sorting and bring them back. Okay, so let's have a go and see how we get on. So let's here's our text. As you can see, it's all been anonymized. So this is going to be my script, so I need to copy that, create a new file to put it in. So there's my Fredit script, there's my text. So if I run that, then it's sorted the ABs back to where they should have been, and I'd put some yellow and turquoise and so on the different scripts, so that you can on the different references, so you can see that they're being held together. So if I back off through that using Control Z, so I can get rid of 1, 2, there are the ZCs, look, 3, that was the sorting, and you notice bibliography has been sorted down the bottom because that's a B, and then back to where we started, so there was the 3 M's and so on. Okay, so that seems to be working okay, but if I try it again with a slightly bigger, that was just a little bit of text from the document. If I try it with a bit more, you'll see how one of the problems comes up. So if I try and run it on there, so I want to run Fredit, and what we've got here, we've got this strange one here with quotes. And so that was the next problem I had, that some of the items within the list didn't start directly with the name of a person or an organization. They were actually quotations with quotation mark. So immediately the whole thing goes wrong because those are sorted at the top. So at that stage I realized I was going to have to use a macro, and so I used the macro to kind of remove that first quote and put a unique marker at the end of there, so then it can be sorted, and it will be sorted on bending in this case, and then afterwards I look for the JK and go back to the beginning and put the quote back. So, but that has to be done in a macro. There's no simple easy way to do that within Fredit. Okay, so let's try the actual macro, so we can get rid of our Fredit script. Use more of the file. There was our bending, yeah, so it had to be sorted with the B's. So I wrote a macro called bibsort with dittos. So if we bring in another file, there we go. Okay, this looks the same, but it's somewhat bigger. It's 8,000 words. So if I run the bibsort, I can run it on here, bibsort with dittos. If I run that, which is fine, but what we've got here is 3 titles, because actually what the file was 3 sections of references, as you can see, and it sorted the whole lot. So the macro obviously has to be able to sort a selection of references, which is fine. I can do that within the macro itself. And so let's see how you do that, because we're going to learn another useful tool. Okay, so I'll bring that original one back in now, and what we've got, we want to select some of the text. So if I look down the bottom of this file, let's make it bigger. The bottom bit is only those few sections there, so I can just mark those, and I can run. I'll run it from a keystroke. I'll run the bibsort. Okay, so it's just sorted that section there and left it in place. So the other 2 sections, so what I try and do is put the cursor there and go up until I find the top end of it. But actually there's a darn sight easier way of doing it. If you put the cursor there and put in a marker, and what I'm doing is I'm going to use two macros, bookmark, a temporary bookmark add, and a bookmark to cursor select. So if I add a temporary bookmark there with bookmark temp add. So I've got a bookmark there. Then I can easily scroll up without having to try and maintain the selection or trying to do a shift select, which you sometimes get wrong. So I go to there, say that's what I want, and then if I use the bookmark to cursor select, then it does it to there, and as we can see, if we go down the bottom, that's maintained the bottom of it there. So I can run the macro on that bit. Done that. Okay, no, it's not there yet. Yeah, that's it. And then I can do the same again. So if I move the cursor left, I'll be able to. Well, I can go to the top, can't I? So I go to the top, put the marker there, temporary bookmark there. Go down, find the end of that first section. It's quite long. There it is. Z's. There they are. Put the cursor there, and then bookmark to cursor select, and then I can run the macro again. Okay, that's just about it and how to use it. But as I put up here at the beginning of the actual macro, if we look at the macro which I've got here, I've put in my two alternatives just to make it easier for you. If you've got different, well, you're quite likely to have different ditto marks, as I've called them. So you can put those in there, and you've got ditto 1 and ditto 2 there, so you can do that. Okay, so that's the main part of what I wanted to say. That's like for everybody. So if you've got any queries, give me an email. Now, for those of you who are interested in the programming side of it, let's have a look at the programming. And I've got the macro here in a Word file to make it easier to see, because we can wind it up. So how did I do it? Well, okay. What I'm doing is I'm echoing the same set of Fredit items and also adding in an item which will allow me to cope with those initial quotation marks that were a difficulty. So here we go. What have we got? Okay, so you've got, as I said, you've got the two different ditto marks there. Now what I've got here, this section of text, is a way of saying if there's no text so it's asking, is there any text selected? So if some text is selected in the file I'm dealing with, then the selection start will not be equal to selection end, because there is some selection made. If the cursor is just sitting there, then selection start and selection end will be the same. So this will either set up a range which is a duplicate of that which is selected, or it will set a range which is the whole content of the file. So that's how we do the how we set up a range so that we only deal with the part of the text that we want to. So we've got the first find and replace here, and before I actually deal with the detail there, notice here that I've put wrap find stop. Now normally when you're doing a replace all, you would have word find continue, because you're saying start your find and replace from wherever the cursor is, go down to the bottom, jump up to the top, and come back round again to make sure you do all of the file. But we only want to make the changes to the range, so that range has to be maintained, and we have to go from the top to the bottom of it and then stop, because if you don't, if you put find continue, then even though you set a range, it will go through that range and it will say, well, you said find continue, so and it will go round back up to the top, and the whole document will be changed, not just the range. So that's an important learning point. Okay, so I was looking for a carriage return and as this is a wildcard find and replace, we have to use 13, not P. That's the CHRW is the code, the Unicode for an open double quote, and then a set of A to Z's and spaces, capital or lowercase, any number, and then what we do then is to put at the end of that range, we put we'll keep the carriage return and the text, but we put in a code there, and we don't put in the quotation mark. So here's the bit where we change the first ditto into ZC, then the second ditto into CQ, then we do the sort, then we reverse the ZCs into ditto 1 and the CQs into ditto 2, and then here's the final bit where we look for carriage return, some text, and the VB, and we replace it with carriage return, the quote mark, and the text, but obviously not the VB. Okay, so I think that's it, and I can stop and go and watch the rest of the rugby. Okay, oh, and I was going to give you my just put in the reminder of my contact address if you've got any queries. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.